Antonio, you've got your sound switched off.
Hi, this is my 13th talk with the Toastmasters, and today we have a special one. I'm pleased to introduce a Toastmaster International President, Mr. Richard E. Peck. For over 30 years, Richard was a senior member of the Network Support Division at AT&T, the Seymour, Connecticut resident led cross teams to successfully deliver $1 million high-tech projects. Outside of Toastmasters, Richard has served as a club president and lieutenant governor for Kiwanis International. Today is a member of Lions Club and has also worked in various capacities with Catholic War veterans. Wow! He also holds a board seat in the local town government. Richard is not a normal licensed driver. He is a professional licensed race car driver in his limited spare time. Can be found at the racetrack as either a driver spectator. He is a Toastmaster since 2006. Richard is a member of Nutmeg Toastmasters Club in Woodbridge, Connecticut, and is also currently of Park City Toastmasters Club in Stratford, Connecticut. Please help me in welcome the International President, Distinguished Toastmaster, Richard Pegg. Hi, Richard.
Hello, Antonio. How are you today?
Thanks very much. It's an honor for us, for everybody who is hearing us, Toastmasters and no Toastmasters, not also in Portugal, also in Spain, and I think also abroad in the right way that we have makes our promotions. Normally, this is the typical questions that I like to ask. How did you get to know Toastmasters, and why did you feel like joining?
Well, that's an interesting story, and some listeners may already be aware of it, as I shared it previously in one of my other chats. I found out about Toastmasters from motivational speaker Les Brown. I had met Les at a seminar, and he and I got to speaking in the back hallway, just a casual conversation, one of those chance meetings that you have. And he had asked me if I'd ever thought about getting into public speaking, which I hadn't. I was mid-career at that point and wasn't looking for any change. Of course, I probably didn't truly understand what public speaking meant, which I think is a lot of the misconception that people have. He gave me his card and we went on our merry way. I called him about 2 weeks later and struck up the conversation again and asked him if someone was going to get involved with public speaking, what would he recommend? And the first thing he said was find a Toastmasters group. So I found a club that was only about 10, 15 minutes away from my house, attended the first meeting, really liked what I saw, and ended up joining.
Yeah, it's the curiosity is that after you join, what was the impact as a Toastmaster on the beginning and now in your professional and personal life?
Well, I think one of the things that we think when we hear public speaking and communication is just that, the spoken word. But through Toastmasters, we learn that there's so much more to communication than just the spoken word. It's the body language, the facial expressions, the tonality that you use. Now, I visited a club in Portugal a few years ago where it was a Portuguese-only speaking club. I don't speak Portuguese, but I went anyhow because I've learned to focus on different things beyond the spoken word. So how the person reacts, their expressions, their body language, that can tell just as much a story as the words can. So it's that appreciation for understanding there's so much more to communication than just what we say or what we write.
I have here with me co-hoster Norberto Amaral. He belongs to the club in Aveiro, 50 kilometers in the south of Porto, and also is the officer in our District 107. Norbert, I think you have some questions to ask to Richard.
We have so many of them, and I don't think we've got hardly any time for this. Thank you so much. Richard, first of all, let me say it's a pleasure to have you here on the show. It's really amazing. It's a real honor for myself as well. I myself have been a Toastmaster for about 10 years or so, or almost 10 years. And it's really fantastic to see how far we can progress in an organization like Toastmasters. I would like to ask you, what is your main motivation? What is your main driver to become a Toastmaster? I mean, actually, not to become, but to actually still be a Toastmaster after having had so many different positions in the organization. And we keep on going, right? I mean, it's not just one thing. It seems like there's always something more.
Well, thank you, Norberto. And congratulations on your nearly decade with the organization. That's great to hear. You know, what keeps me going is what I see. You know, we as individuals, as Toastmasters, help others to achieve their goals. Help them to reach farther than they think they can sometimes because they come with a barrier that they've put up. Now, how many times have we seen someone come into a club and the first thing they say is, I could never speak like that. I could never do that. And they join the club and we mentor them and we encourage them. We give them feedback. Then the next thing you know, they're competing to become a world champion. Yet they started off saying, I could never do that. And it's that transformational ability that we have as Toastmasters that keeps me going. And you heard in my intro that I belong to other organizations. But this is the one where you get to actually see change. A lot of other organizations you can make a donation to and never see a physical change. You hope it happens, but you don't see it. And here we witness that. We get to really, really witness that. And for me, that's what keeps me going.
That's a very interesting answer. I feel exactly the same, to be honest. I feel that in myself, and I can see that in other people as well. When we mentor Toastmasters who are just joining the organization, and they themselves seem to be closed in the shell, and we need to keep actually pounding at the shell and see if this person comes out, and they do. And I, to be honest, I think that's one of the most amazing things that I find at Toastmasters is that people really do respond to this continuous prodding, to this continuous challenge of them overcoming their own barriers, right?
Well, you know, in the English language, we put N''T after a lot of words, right? I can't, I won't, I shouldn't, I couldn't. And unfortunately, when you keep saying that over and over, it becomes ingrained in you. Or if someone's told you that, you can't do this, you'll never be able to accomplish that, you start to believe it. And for us, we have the ability to get that N''T out and show them that they can and they will and they should and they could. And that's when growth starts.
That's quite interesting. I'd like to ask you, just then I'll pass on this back to Antonio. I'd really like to know, what is the moment or one of the moments that gave you the most joy being a Toastmaster?
I think one of the times that gave me the most joy was one of the most unexpected times. And I was a district leader at the time, and I was speaking to some members. It was probably at a TLI, a training, and I'm very much on keeping on time. That is my key. We start on time, you end on time. And I made a statement that their time was more valuable than mine was. And I just kind of left it at that. About a year later, a young Toastmaster came up to me and said that they had just taken the first step into district leadership, that they weren't going to, but they realized when I made that recognition that their time was more important than mine and what leadership really is. And that individual stepped into leadership and had a great journey throughout it. So, but that was one of those moments where someone comes up to you later and says, do you remember that conversation? And you're like, well, yeah, but I didn't think it was an impactful one, but it made an impact on somebody.
It does. I mean, if we, I don't know if you can see exactly what the word that you have just behind you, it says service. And that is exactly the essence of leadership, isn't it? It's becoming, servicing other people, helping other people.
Well, if you saw my inauguration video, my mantra is that being a leader is not about being the center of attention. Being a leader is about being the epicenter of action.
Yes, we saw that.
So
it's actually part of the district's core team's presentation that we gave at the last TechCom.
Good.
Those words are now ingrained in our hearts, to be honest.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard.
Yeah, it's true, and it's amazing the kind of effort you can eat in our minds and to deliver that. And one of the challenges that we have in Toastmasters and in our normal daily lives and professional regarding leadership is people management. It's not so easy, and sometimes we have the egos, and even we make our weekly sessions for speaking and improve our speaking and be better. But the management and the leadership is a big issue. Sometimes it's not so easy, and regarding the egos, we have clubs sometimes with problems, and this is a touching point that also I like to hear from you, because people don't know normally to handle conflicts. It's very difficult, and sometimes on Toastmasters we have it.
Conflict is difficult to handle, but I think conflict can be handled if you can get to the root of the problem. If everyone can step away from it just a little bit farther, get rid of the egos, check those at the door. A lot of conflict happens when we don't look at it from someone else's standpoint, when we don't put ourselves in their shoes to try to get an idea. A lot of times we see things with a preconceived notion on what it is and how to fix it right away without really understanding what the problem is. And I'll tell you, that is one of the things that I've had to learn as a leader, is when someone comes to you with a problem or what could be perceived as a problem, they don't always want you to fix it for them. Sometimes they just want you to listen and talk it out, and then they fix it on their own. But the conflict that I've seen, when I've seen it, unfortunately we don't have a lot of it, happens when people come together and they're not willing to look from the other side. And once that barrier is up, there's no way you can get beyond it. But it's also asking the right questions. It's not usually the first question that's going to get you to the problem or the source of the problem. It's the follow-up questions that allow you to dig just a little bit deeper to understand what it is. And I think as leaders, we need to go into things with a clear mind and just forget about what we think we know the problem is. Forget about what we think the solution is, and listen. And listening will help solve a lot of problems.
Have you personally had any kind of bad experience?
Have I? Yeah. When I was a district leader, I had a couple situations that were a little bit difficult to deal with. Sometimes you have to step aside and have somebody else come in, though, and mediate. See, sometimes if you're too close to the problem, you can't see your way away from it. And when conflict arrives, sometimes you're not the best person to be put in that situation. Because hey, maybe I know Antonio and I know Norberto and I'm good friends with them and they're both not getting along. Well, who do I side with, and how do I judge this, and how do I make this go away? And then if I side with Antonio, Norberto gets mad at me. If I side with Norberto, Antonio gets mad at me. Then the three of us don't talk to each other anymore. How about if I bring somebody in from outside to mediate that problem and get a better idea of what's going on? Then that can save everybody at that point. And I've been in that situation before.
Yeah, it's not normally. Maybe you are the right person to just judge me what I'm going to tell. Toastmasters, maybe I don't know all of organizations. Maybe it's the only one organization where a person with 18 years old, 60 years old, can be president of something. And we have the tools for people who maybe never thought to be a general manager, a CEO, an investor, and to have to be a number one of the company, but have the chance to be the number one in a club and to test, because a club is like a small company. Is true what I'm saying? Maybe this is the only organization in the world that someone can be president.
Oh, I think all the organizations that are out there, Lions, Kiwanis, all the ones I belong to, somebody has the opportunity to do that. I think that organizational structures can make it a little bit more difficult, maybe a little bit more timely to get to where you want to get to, if that's what you want to get to. The interesting thing there, Antonio, is where do you focus? So when you join the organization, is your focus to be the international president? Is your focus to be the district director? Or is your focus to be the best you can be in the role you are at the time? And when I joined, I had no thought of ever becoming the international president. I often jokingly say, I didn't even know there was an international president when I joined the organization. And that was never my focus. The journey is what got me where I am, and my ability to adapt and continuously to add to the organization got me here. But my goal was to always be the best I could be in the role I was at that time. If you focus too far down the road, you miss what's right in front of you, and you may not do the right job.
Yeah, this is true. I think nobody no member when beginning to be a member of Toastmaster imagine where it can go. I think
I had a friend who was a district leader at the same time I was. He outright said, I am going to be the international president one day. That individual is no longer a member of the organization.
Yeah.
So you just want to be the best you can be in the role you're at the time.
Exactly.
Yes, of course.
It's funny when you try to become something or someone, and that shows what your center of attention is, that you want to, well, not you, obviously, this is just a figure of speech, but someone wants to be the center of attention. And that's not the point. The point, as you said, is about being the epicenter of action. And that means that we need to make it happen and help other people doing it as well, rather than us being the center of attention, right?
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah.
Richard, I have here a special guest also. She is a very busy person, but she has dedicated some time for you today. So I'm going to introduce Cristina Huesar.
Hello, Cristina.
Hi.
How are you?
Is our district director. Some people don't know. So, Cristina, I know that you have a desire to make some questions to Richard.
Yes,
so,
of course.
The stage is yours.
Thank you, Antonio. Hi, Norberto and Richard. I'm really happy to be here tonight because I was wondering, as you were speaking, probably because a lot of people in the clubs are watching us tonight and are wondering, what does it take to be an international president, or what's even being an international president? No, exactly the same question that you were asking yourself in the beginning when you joined Toastmasters. So my first question for you tonight would be, what are the main responsibilities of your role? What does an international president do?
So some of the main responsibilities, and obviously they continue to evolve, especially in this time that we're in now. But we are the voice of the organization. We are essentially the head of the board of directors. So we're the chairman of the board. So we oversee the board of directors. We help with the strategic planning of the organization. We work with this chief executive officer, Dan Rex, many people will know who he is, to help determine where the organization needs to go over time. Unfortunately, we are now looking at where we need to go over a shorter period of time because the pandemic has changed everything we know. And there has been no leaders that have ever had to deal with this before for a full year. So Cristina, like yourself, coming into this role, you had no idea you were going to be living in a 1x2-inch computer screen box for an entire year. Yet you've had to. So what would be a normal process has evolved during this period. So, things that have had to be looked at this year, how we best reach our members this year, what we can do to help them within a realistic approach is different this year than what's ever been done before. But essentially, we are the brand ambassador for the organization when you think about it. So I'll speak to Rotary, I'll speak to our clubs, I'll speak to other districts around the world. I speak to other organizations that want to know about us. Mm-hmm. And as I stated earlier, I'm the chairman of the board, so I oversee our board of directors.
That's as you were speaking about the pandemic and how it has, of course, affected all of us in our daily routines and, of course, in our role as Toastmasters leaders. I would like to ask you, it's a double question, about how you see the main challenges that we are, as an organization, seeing, and what are the main opportunities as well? Because with the pandemic, of course, we have problems, but also opportunities behind us.
So the biggest challenges that we're seeing right now is growth. When you think about it, and I know you're seeing it in your district as well, Christina, members are slowly renewing. Clubs are not growing as quick as we would like them to. Now, look at that from an organizational standpoint, and that's probably one of our biggest challenges right now. We all want to get together. We all want to be back in the same room. That's what we started out as, that energy that we had, that ability to shake hands, clap out loud, give high fives. My laptop hates it when I give it a high five. It just doesn't know what to do. But we want to get back to that, right? The problem is right now we can't. And when will we be able to? If I had a crystal ball, I'd be able to predict that. I do know that some countries are starting to loosen their restrictions and some clubs are getting together. They need to be cautious as they do that. That, I think, is actually our biggest challenge. I think that personal connection right now is our biggest challenge. I tend not to look at the challenges as much as I like to look for the opportunities. So we have clubs, all of our clubs are meeting either online or hybrid in format, which means that members from around the world can visit a club anywhere in the world at any time. Something they've never been able to do before, to learn about the club, the culture, the country, the people. Up to now would not have happened. As the international president, my ability to meet with members would have been at the district conferences or at convention. Couldn't do that this year. Couldn't do that last year. So what is the opportunity there? Do I focus on the challenge or do I find the opportunity? Well, the opportunity was to be able to meet with clubs at the club level. And that was the reason behind the International President World Tour, to visit 145 clubs in 145 countries. And not just to visit, because let's be honest, if you can find a Zoom link, you can visit anywhere, but to take on a role. So giving a pathway speech, being a general evaluator, providing an evaluation, that has never been done before. We still haven't accomplished all 145, but we're really working hard towards it. But I truly believe that the opportunity now is there to better understand the organization. See, if you're going to lead any organization, if you're going to lead a corporation, you need to understand who makes up the organization. And our members make up the organization. I want them to also feel that the board is not some group that sits in an ivory tower somewhere that's unapproachable. And I will tell you that when I visit and I give a speech, I get honest evaluations just as if I was a member of that club. And that's exactly what I expect to get.
Richard, if I may, we have a question here from someone who's left a question in the comment section of Facebook. It's actually Roberto Freitas. He's from PMI Portugal Toastmasters Club. And he's asking a question which is precisely directly related to exactly what you're talking about. He says, and I quote, "Do you expect Toastmasters International will accept hybrid meetings as the new standard after the COVID-19 pandemic?"
Well, I think that's already in place. We've had hybrid clubs for years now, and we recently redefined what a hybrid club looks like. So, it's now up to the club to truly define what that looks like. It used to be 51% had to be physically located and 49% could be online. But then we realized that might not work for every club. There are clubs that meet, every week during the course of a month. Could they meet 3 times in person and 2 times online and still be considered a hybrid? So that definition now is in the club's hands. Do I think hybrid is going to be predominant in the future? I think that all depends on who you ask. There are individuals who just can't wait to get back in the same room with each other. I know when they opened up in South Korea and China, those members went running back to the clubs just because I've been online 8 hours today. I don't want to be online anymore. I just want to be with people. But there is that subset that is still not going to be comfortable with getting out there and being in the real world. Yeah. There's also clubs that have inadvertently, in my opinion, made themselves hybrid clubs already without knowing it. As they're accepting membership from around the world, because they can do that, when they go back to meeting in person, they still have to provide a service to these individuals who are not located there. They're dues-paying members. The only way they're going to be able to do that is to be a hybrid club, unless that member decides to transfer to a different club. So there are some that are already there.
Yeah.
And of course, I would say that it's also an opportunity for people to meet other clubs in other countries without having to actually travel. Mm-hmm. And I've seen lots of that in this year, in the past year, where we're able to go to a club in India or in Japan, or sometimes they visit us in the district conferences, for example. Yeah. And that's, I think, quite it's a very interesting way to grow, to intermingle, to talk to other people who we all know that we share the same values and we share the same format of Toastmasters. At the same time, there's some small variations that sometimes make this so much more, even more interesting than what it already is, isn't it?
Yeah. When I visited Portugal and spoke at the clubs there, it was just a different experience. Mm-hmm. And I physically visited. I spoke at several clubs in Lisbon, and it was just a different environment. Now, most people don't get that opportunity, but now they can. Mm-hmm. They may not get the physical opportunity, but they'll get the culture, they'll get the club experience. I've talked to members about giving speeches at other clubs because then you know if your message is coming across. Because not every word translates in every country. So is what I'm saying relatable? Is the message coming across? It's just a wonderful experience to be able to do that.
Yeah. And regarding that point, but before, Christina, I know that you are a busy person, but you can stay with us at the end as you wish. Okay. Meanwhile, I have a question here from you know very well, João Mendonça.
Okay? Hey, João.
And is the TMI using these pandemic times to improve its support to clubs related to online?
I believe so. I mean, we've now allowed clubs to determine if they want to be online and even be associated with a district. So a district may have completely 100% online clubs. I think we need to continue to look at best practices for those online clubs to make sure that they are getting the support, and that when they're associated with the district knows how to support them. So I don't know, Christina, if you have any 100% online clubs yet that have formed within your district that have associated with the district, but making sure that you have the tools as district leaders to be able to support them is going to be a continuous evolutionary process, because technology is going to change, the needs, the wants, the skills are going to change. So yeah, I think we're looking at how we support both online and hybrid clubs.
Yes, as of today, we have at least one club that is fully 100% online. That is an online club that aligned with our district this year. And that's all for now. But I know that in some clubs there are getting members from India, from Azerbaijan, from basically everywhere in the world. And that's not going to be easy when this is over, of course.
Yeah. And Joan's still asking, or even related to club management, like the Easy Speak way.
Yeah, I know that Easy Speak is one that's been talked about, and how we can best help clubs with something similar to that. I've had the opportunity to experience Easy Speak. The only thing that I found is that when I'm a guest and someone puts me onto the Easy Speak platform, I can't get off of it. And I keep getting an agenda every week when the club meets, that to the point where I finally had to send a message going, please take me off the mailing list. So it's not as easy for a guest to get off of it, but
it's an issue for the tech support.
But I do know clubs like it, and they find it very valuable, a very valuable tool. Yeah.
João Mendonça have here also a very interesting question. How important is having support from the family to take an important role like that the one you are right now? Betty Ann is also a Toastmaster. Are you just a lucky person because of that?
João knows my wife very well. Yeah, she's a Toastmaster. She's actually a PR manager for District 53. She joined Toastmasters after I did. I think it's lucky because she now has the ability to understand what the organization does, gets to experience that on her own. When she joined, I did not want her to join my club. I wanted her to have her own experience, which she did. So she got to see what some of that was like for sure. It's great to have somebody who you can bounce questions off of and talk about things every once in a while. I think there's also a little bit of a challenge to it as well. So as her being PRM and her focus, my being the international president and my focus, sometimes there doesn't seem to be time to separate our Toastmasters lives and spend time in our personal life. And that can sometimes be a little bit more difficult. And I think everyone needs to think about that, taking a step away for a few minutes and making sure you're grounding yourself in your personal life as well. And we have multiple calendars set up, and she'll look at my calendar in the morning. She goes, well, I'm seeing you're speaking in Oman, then you're going to Portugal, then you're going to Saudi Arabia. Will you be home at all tonight, or should I just have dinner for you at 10 or 11 o'clock? So it can be a little bit difficult, that balance. We also have a lot of fun joking about it and saying that occasionally I'll wake up in the morning and there'll be an evaluation form down on the table that says what I heard you say last night and how that could have come across better and how you could improve. But she is great. She loves Toastmasters, and I'm glad she's had the experience. She didn't have such a great experience this year, as the fact that neither one of us were able to really get out there and visit our districts the way we wanted to. But we'll get through it.
Robert, you can continue.
Yeah, I'd love to ask you a question. I think this is the right timing for that. It's have you ever had what was your biggest challenge at Toastmasters so far? Is it a personal challenge? Was it a professionals in the sense of Toastmasters itself? What would you say it was?
So my biggest, I think there were two challenges, but my biggest personal challenge came in 2009. In 2009, I was running for the senior team. I would have been the Lieutenant Governor Marketing, your club growth director role now. Was the only candidate for it. So, when it came for election, that wasn't an issue. But I was also diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer at the time. The convention was also being held in Connecticut, so we were the host district for the convention. So you can imagine, you're on the senior team, you're the host district for the convention, and now you're running back and forth to chemotherapy and radiation and all that nonsense. It was a struggle, but I was able to get through it because of Toastmasters, because of the support that they gave. And it's funny because people around me, I don't know if they thought I was contagious or fragile or whatever, but they tend to back up a little bit. I would go to my Toastmasters meeting and they go, listen, we need a timer tonight. And, you're here, take on the role. So they just made you feel like you were part of the family. And that allowed me to get through what was a very, very difficult time. And I'm much appreciative because of that.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you. You said you had another one as well, didn't you?
Yeah. So my other one was in 2016. In 2016, when I ran for second vice president the first time and lost, that was a difficult one for me. I did deserve to lose, but when I thought about it, and I was thinking about it initially, it was like, how did I lose this? I couldn't understand. And it was because I hadn't pushed myself to be better than I had been in the past. I hadn't continued to evolve my skills. As leaders, if we're not being challenged, back prior to the DLC, it would just be one person nominated for a role for club growth or program quality or district director. You were essentially a walk-on role. You didn't have to improve over the last role because there was nobody running against you. Now we've got individuals running against each other. So you're pushing yourself to be better. Mm-hmm. And in 2016, I had to sit back and realize that I hadn't pushed myself to be who I needed to be. The leaders of their organization were right that I didn't deserve to win that year. That past President Mendes definitely deserved to win that year. But that's a time that you sit back and you do some introspection and see what happened. And I think that's important.
I have here a question from our IT guy from the district, is Diego. Diego Alonso. Since being online is going to be the norm, as Toastmasters thought about how to help districts to will maintain their online presence, for example, license for online meetings, voting tools, website hosting, ads, and so on.
I don't think we've gotten that far into it. We're only 1 year into what it looks like to even be in this type of situation. And I don't think districts necessarily would want us to tell them how to run their district and what tools they need to use. I think districts like to use what they feel comfortable, and not all tools work the same for everybody. And this is the first time I'm on this platform. I've never used it before. I'm used to Zoom or the Teams channel or anything along those lines. So this is one that works for you and seems to be working very well. I'm not sure I would mandate this to every other district that's out there that they use this type of tool, nor would they want me to. But I think finding best practices, as I stated earlier, is something that we should be looking at, and getting feedback from district leaders on what's working and what's not. I think one of the worst things that we could do, if you will, is to tell districts that this is what they need to use without getting feedback from the districts on how things work. I think it's more important that we get feedback on how things are working and then figure out what tools to use. Internet doesn't work in every country the way it works here. And that can make it difficult. So those countries definitely going to want to be back in person.
João Mendonça have also here something that you lose. What do you think about our funny way to commemorate ETMs being lifted up by other ETMs? You have lifted up before already?
I was when I
didn't was lift up.
You didn't. Well, João is a dear friend of mine, and there were several others there, and that was the tradition, so they did it. I'm not sure I would have trusted too many people, but I do trust João, so I was okay with that. It was different. It was different, and I know different districts celebrate their DTMs in a variety of ways, especially at their conference. So it was unique. They didn't drop me. I was very happy.
Every year, someone, it's a club that in Portugal we are going to help, in Africa, in Guinea, and this is for someone is the first time. Dalila Dabo from the Guinea, the future Guinea Toastmasters Club, what you advise give to someone is taking the first steps in the world of Toastmasters?
Just do it. Just do it. If you want to become a better communicator, you have to do it by giving speeches. You know, we can't just say we want to become better at something and it's going to pour into us. We can't get it by osmosis. We have to do it. And you know, there's a song in one of the lyrics says, the first step is the longest stride. Well, once you've made that first step, once you've seen the support and the help you're going to get, the encouragement that you're going to get, it becomes much easier after that. And I will say the icebreaker speech is probably, to me, when I gave it, was probably one of the most difficult speeches to give, because you're sharing about yourself, where that is generally the intent, is to share about yourself. And a lot of people have difficulty talking about themselves, you know, and once you get past that, once you get over that first hurdle, it's a lot easier after that.
Richard, I have a question that completely sinks into what you're saying, and I couldn't miss this opportunity. We've been here for a while already, Christina and I, and Antonio, of course, and you yourself, and we kind of know what it is like to be a communicator and a leader. Mm-hmm. But standing back to our, I would say maybe the first year before or the last year before we became Toastmasters, how was it so far? In your personal experience and in the experience of other people that you've seen, that you've witnessed, how is it for people to become good communicators? How easy is it for people to become good leaders?
I don't think it's easy to become either one. I think it's a journey. I think it's a challenge. I think it's, you know, it's funny when I visit other countries that speak multiple languages. I say I have a hard enough time speaking English, never mind multiple languages, and constantly trying to evolve my communication style and get that out is not easy. It's not easy because the audience changes all the time. And when the audience changes, the way you connect has to change. So communication is an ever-evolving process. The same with leadership. You know, I guarantee if you would ask Joao when he was a district leader, leadership then was a total different model than what leadership is now. Christina having to be in a pandemic leader, if you will, something that no one's ever had to do before, skill set that had to be developed for that no one's had to do before. Different. And if we aren't willing to adapt our styles to the situation that we're in, there's no way to become a proper leader. So to think that one style will work in every situation, it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So it's not easy. You have to have a self-realization of what your strengths are and what, importantly, your weaknesses are, so that you know how to lead. And you know, as leaders, we oftentimes are afraid to ask for help because we're a leader, right? Somebody put us in this position because they expect us to lead. And if we ask for help, are we showing a crack in our ability? Are we showing a sign of weakness? And I personally believe asking for help as a leader is a sign of wisdom. And I'd rather be surrounded by wise leaders who know that there's places for them to grow than to be surrounded by leaders who think they know everything and really have areas to grow in.
Mm-hmm. And yet people do become good communicators and good leaders at Toastmasters. Mm-hmm. So something clearly we're doing something right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, listen, my belief is that you can't be a good leader if you're not a good communicator.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, you can be a good communicator and not be a leader. But if you want to lead people, you need to be able to communicate with them.
Absolutely. Otherwise, there's just no way you're going to make it. Absolutely. Right. But there's one question I would like to ask him, because we have, I would guess, a more limited perspective on international organizations of like Lions and well, Toastmasters we do. And one question I would like to ask you is, what is it that sets Toastmasters apart? Or is it is Toastmasters really apart from the rest of the bunch of other similar kinds of organizations when it comes to leadership and communication? We feel that. We feel it is. But from your perspective, do you see that as well? And do you see that, although it's difficult, as you said, to become a good leader and a good communicator, that we do it consistently, therefore, again, we must be doing something right?
Yeah, and I think your question is spot on. You have to look at what the mission of those organizations are. So the mission of Lions, which is a organization that initially started out to helping people who were visually impaired. Helen Keller was one of the founders for Lions. If you look at Kiwanis is dedicated to helping youth in their community or around the world. Not much there for helping communication and helping with leadership. Rotary has its own mission as well. We're here to help people become better communicators and leaders. That is our mission. And each organization has its function and its place. And just like we would never be the organization to go help visually, be the preeminent visually impaired organization or the local community child care organization, they wouldn't be those who would be there to help promote the leadership and education or communication development. So we all have our place and we all help serve the greater good of this world. And I think that's it. We all can dovetail in together.
Fits it right in. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why I guess it feels special to be here. At least it does to me quite a lot. I won't go into many personal details, but I do notice the differences between the 10 years ago and now. I definitely see that difference, for not just for myself, but for the people around me as well, which I think is good.
Yeah. Okay. Christina.
And so thinking about the future, where's Toastmasters going to be in, I don't know, let's say 10 years from today?
Good question.
Where are we going to be in 10 years from now? I apologize for any background noise you may have just heard.
It's a race car.
No, it was a truck going up the street. I wish it was a race car. We're getting to that time of year. Well, I think you're going to see us as a continually evolving organization over the next 10 years. We need to look at the online program, which we've talked about already tonight. We need to continue to look at hybrid and what that looks like. There are a number of countries out there that we need to figure out how to incorporate them into our organization where we don't have clubs at right now. How do we reach them? And is there a value to it there? We think it is, but do they feel that there's a value to it? So how do we continue to grow our organization, get our message across? Pathways will have to continue to evolve. The needs of our members is always changing. Think about adding the engaging humor path, which was a new path for us, something that was needed. Right now, we need to think about how we help with the virtual leadership of virtual meetings. What does that look like? You can lead virtually, but you can't be a virtual leader. So what do those skill sets look like in the future? And how can we build those into the program? We need to think about how we get ahead of everybody else. And I think many people would say right now we're not as far ahead as we should be. But the organization is constantly working to get there. And think about when we went into technology, and for those of you who have been around for a number of years, technology was the thing that we stayed away from. Right? It was all that personal in-room, right? So Christina's going, no, we don't go there. But we've had to go there quickly now. And have we stumbled a little bit? Yeah, sometimes you do. When you start running before you're really walking, you stumble a little bit. But we've had the ability to overcome that. And now that we've got a footing, we can start to move forward. And I think you're going to continue to see that growth over the next 5-10 years, if it takes that long. And I know that strategic plans are meant for long term, but the world changes so quickly nowadays that what we say is going to be important 5 years from now might be important tomorrow. In 5 years from now, it's something completely different. So we're going to have to continue to also be more agile, more willing to make that change. There's a risk, and that's how much change can people absorb at any one point in time. So I like the analogy of throwing a small pebble in the water so that you get that nice gentle rock, and everyone likes that. They're on a boat, they have that nice gentle rocking feeling. Nobody wants to throw the boulder in the water and get the tidal wave that keeps rocking the ship back and forth. So how much change can people take at one point in time before you have to slow down a little bit and let everyone get accustomed to it? I think these are things we're going to have to figure out what the balance is.
I had a question for you about that. What do you see currently as the main opportunities for growth and for opportunity for Toastmasters currently? I mean, obviously looking past the pandemic, what would you say are the main drivers for growth for Toastmasters?
I think one is the online platform that we're in right now. It allows us to reach out farther. They say that in the future, about 66% of the workforce is going to be working remotely. Only 33% is going to be in person. So what does a corporate club look like in the future? How do we define that? I think that's something that we need to look at and get our hands on, is what that looks like. What do community clubs look like? These are all opportunities for us to continue to improve. I think there's a cultural evolution going on in our organization right now, with members traveling around the world and learning about the world and getting a better understanding of what works some places that doesn't work others. And, the difficulties that are there that were often overlooked. I think there's now a unity that's coming in, that we're shrinking the size of the world, not physically, but we're shrinking the distance between us through the use of these online technologies. And these are opportunities that will continue to be there, that we need to find ways to utilize to the best of our ability. Antonio, when we started the call earlier today, said, probably would have never had an opportunity to get an international president on the call. Not that the title means anything, but it's the ability to reach out farther now that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to. And I think organizationally, the more we can shrink the size of the world, the more we can bring people together and keep them united and connected, are the opportunities we need to look at right now. The pandemic has made us have to be so far apart at a time when people need to be so close together. And think about, this is our outlet. We get to be connected via Zoom. Think about those individuals who don't have that opportunity, how serious that isolation can feel. So I think these are opportunities that we need to really look at and explore.
Richard, before we are almost on time, and before make you the last question, someone here in the sequence, in the sequence of what we said, is Hugo Ribeiro, who asked, how much would the world change if everyone was a Toastmasters member at least 1 year?
It would change exponentially, because we would learn how to communicate with each other, and we'd learn more about each other. And I think just doing it for 1 year would change the world, would really change the world. And that's because communication is the key to everything. Whether it's the spoken word, the written word, or the way you present yourself, communication is key.
Yeah, it's we cannot imagine if this one day happen. Well, this is why one of the reasons that, and we know that our efforts for the clubs is growing in new members. Most people enter in Toastmasters. This is a long road to do that. But anyway, we see the difference that everybody on Toastmasters make that change in the personal life and also in their professions.
Isn't it unique, Antonio, that everyone has their own journey, and that the journeys may not be the same for each person, But our goal is all the same. The destination that we're trying to get to is all the same. Just the journey that's so different.
Yeah, it's true. And well, today we have 11 pathways, so maybe appear in the future more pathways to adapt for the journey of each one. Well, Richard, my last question to you, and basically is that if you could leave a note or advice for a new member, what would be, and also for a leader at the club district level?
The word of advice that I would give is enjoy the journey. Don't be so rigid that you're not willing to try different things, that you're not willing to go down a different path. And for those of us who drive, we'll often take a side street that we've never been on before. And it's so enjoyable to see what we see. And you just don't know what you're going to experience on that journey. Have an open mind and open eyes to the world around you. And that's what makes it enjoyable. It's not necessarily the end game that's important. It's what you gain along that trip. And when you have an open mind, when you're willing to try things differently, when you're willing to reach outside your comfort zone, that's when you grow. No one here is going to let anyone fail. We're not going to let anyone fail. We're going to clap. We're going to support. We're going to encourage. Safest place you can be. Just be willing to give it a try.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this is why we're still here, to learning, to help the others growing, and of course internally for each one. It's amazing our journey, and we never think that one day can be stopped, because I think we need that. We need that.
You know, the other thing is we all have a story inside of us that we oftentimes won't share because we don't think anyone wants to hear it. But you just never know when that one story you share could be the story that changes someone else's life.
Yeah. And yes, too. Sometimes we have in my club from the city of Setúbal, a member in the first speech, 2 weeks in the club, the first speech as an icebreaker, put everybody crying. Was amazing. So the power that this guy have is amazing. So this is why he entered on Toastmasters, to improve better. But it's amazing. Sometimes we have amazing people with a powerful way, and need to be like a diamond, to be lapid, okay? Because it's amazing what we see, and especially see how the members are growing, okay? Yeah. From the first speech, 5 speech, 10 speech, is amazing. Well, Richard, thank you very much. It was an honor for us, also for me, particularly with Cristina and Norberto. Cristina and Norberto, last words.
Well, actually, if I could say something, I'll definitely quote Richard again. And I don't think I will forget these words anytime soon, which is, being a leader is not about being the center of attention, but being the epicenter of action. And I don't think of anything that I could have said any wiser than this, or even more impactful than this for a person who wants to be a leader. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Norberto. Thank you.
Okay.
I also want to thank you for being here with our district. That's an honor for us. And I hope that you will be the epicenter of action for our members.
Thank you, Cristina. Nice to see you, as always.
Thank you, Richard.
Yes, you too.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, Norberto. Thank you, Joao, if you're still following us on Facebook.
Yeah, thank you very much. And for everybody, thank you very much for your time. And next week, we have another Toastmaster. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.